Check out this tray of smoked candied pecans. Don't they look yummy? I'm gonna grab this one right here. Looks like there's a lot of cinnamon on there. That was good. You wanna see how we got there? Check out this video. Today, we're gonna turn these ingredients into a wonderful snack. That's gonna be smoked candied pecans. Now, I don't know if you like pecans, but that's one of my favorite nuts. And I love to give it a little bit of a candied flavor in the smoker. So you've got both kinds of aspects, a little candy, a little smoke, and it really just comes together really well. Now today, I'm going to go ahead and use the Z-Grill's 10502B pellet grill here. And we're gonna go ahead and get started by setting this up. So I'll be right back. So what I forgot to mention was before I started the camera, I went ahead with the preheating cycle and then I set up the cameras and all the ingredients because I like to get pellet grills preheated really well. They don't use a lot of fuel, so it's really not a big waste of fuel, but it's really essential to getting a stable temperature, especially with the PID, to give yourself a long preheat. And when I say long, I mean an hour. We didn't go quite an hour with this, but by the time we're done with the ingredients, it might end up being that long. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna add the ingredients for the candied pecans into this pan and get those kind of simmering. What you need to do is you need to dissolve all of the sugar granules. So first thing, let's go ahead and add some of the ingredients into the pan, and we're gonna start with the water. Gonna add that in there, and that is a 1/4 cup. And I'll turn on the stove here. Oh, it looks like it lit right up. I love it when it comes on instantly. It's slightly tilted, so I'm gonna move the pan back just a little bit so that way all the ingredients are gonna stay in there. Kind of have it tilted so you can see a little bit. And then the next thing I'm gonna do is always add the water and then the corn syrup first, because I want the liquid items in there. And the reason I add the water first is that way if the pan's starting to get hot, then it'll be able to prevent any burning or anything. If we don't do that, then it could burn. We've got most of that corn syrup in there. So next I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the sugar. I know you can't see this, but it is almost coming to a boil on that water real fast, and we don't want it to completely boil. What we want is we want it to get hot enough to dissolve. I'm gonna go ahead and lower that temperature just a little bit. So the idea is we're making a coating mixture for the nuts, and it doesn't have to be thick and candied. We set the pellet smoker to 234 because we don't want it to exceed 237 because that'll go past the softball stage of candy. And I think that we're right there. This little mini gas stove is really super fast. I'm gonna go ahead and turn that off, and I'll see if I can get a shot of that on the overhead camera here. And hopefully you can see that that is completely liquefied and there is no sugar granules in. That actually came together faster than I expected. The recipe here calls for 1 cup of pecans, but I like mine a little bit on the less side of the sweet side and a little bit more of the rich smoky flavor. So I do that by just doubling the nuts. Now, if you don't want to do it that way, then stick with the original recipe and you will get a nice sweet glaze. Again, we are trying to get this to react in the smoker and not in the pan, so that way the smoke combines with that. I'm gonna get a spatula and I'll be right back. So I grabbed myself one of my large silicone spatulas, and I'm just gonna go ahead and open this up. And again, this is almost 2 cups, approximately 2 cups, and the recipe only calls for 1. But again, I want this to be a little bit less on the sweet side. And something else that you can do is you can also kind of sift this onto a plate so that way you get rid of those crumbles, but I'm not too particularly worried about that myself. Now I'm gonna go ahead and give this a stir around so that way we can get all of that sugar mixture to coat all of the pecans. Go ahead and show you that. Now I'm spreading it out as evenly as I can across the bottom, because we're going to sprinkle in the ingredients so that way they spread out pretty well, but then we'll still mix them and it'll mix better. So first thing, I have a teaspoon of cinnamon right here. A little windy out here. Oh, it almost smells like a cinnamon apple. How wonderful. And then I have a whole nutmeg, and we need about a half a teaspoon or a little bit less. And I have a grater here. You use whichever grater you like. This one gets a little bit bigger pieces of the nutmeg. So if you want a fine grater, then use that and you get some fine. I do not like using pre-grated nutmeg. I find that the fresh stuff just works better even when I'm using less. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and go around. Don't need a lot, I just need a little bit in there to kind of coat in with the cinnamon. Now we've added all that stuff, and I'm gonna go ahead and show you inside the pan really quick. See if you can see that on the close-up cam. And then I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna slowly stir it towards the center. I don't want all this yummy seasoning to end up on the outside. Now I wanna mention to you that these nuts are pre-salted. So if you have unsalted nuts, you'll want to add a couple of pinches of salt. I would say for a batch this size, maybe 1/8 of a teaspoon or 1/4 of a teaspoon if that's what you feel happy with. I'm a low salt kind of person, so I don't do a lot of it. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to set this pan on top of the smoker while I get the next stage, because I want this stuff to stay warm. So you set it right up here, and it will warm and stay nice and smooth and soft and easy to work with. So let me get rid of this stuff. I'll be right back. So what I have here is a 12 by 12 Kona grilling basket. And that's what they're calling this. And basically what we have here is a grill mat mesh with sides on it. So that's why they call it a basket. I really like using these for shrimp and also anything like almonds or pecans or anything like that. I do like to smoke myself some almonds once in a while. We're gonna go ahead and we're gonna use that. But the one trick when you're doing candy is that you wanna put something underneath it. So either on the bottom shelf, put in a cookie sheet, or in today's example, I'm gonna use this piece of tinfoil. First thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and kind of fit it a little bit. It doesn't need to be exact, but we don't want it to be huge over the sides, and we also want to make sure that it's going to fit inside the pellet smoker well. We're just going to create another tray just by folding up the sides. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect, but you can see that it's just slightly larger than the tray, which is a good thing because we're going to throw it in the smoker on the bottom shelf, and this is going to go on the middle shelf. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm gonna go ahead and get a pellet smoker tube ready, because we're gonna add just a punch of smoke. So I'll be right back. I know that I said pellet tube, and what I really meant was pellet tray. Now I do have some pellet tubes around here that work really good in pellet smokers, but they're not ready to use, and this is ready to use, and it's super easy. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna set this up here, and this is all metal surface, so we don't have to worry about burning it or anything. And then I'm gonna light that thing up. You know, I have a lot of really cool tools that I use when I do smoker, but there's one tool that you always need, and that's a fire extinguisher. It's sitting right there. So if something were to go wrong, I would grab that before I ran screaming like a baby. This torch just really gets this thing going fast. Gonna hit it a little bit more, so we'll take a 60-second break and I'll be right back. It has been 60 seconds and this is burning really well. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and set it off to the side because I'm not actually gonna put it in there until the last minute. So let's go ahead and set this over here. Now I'm ready to go ahead and pour this in, so we'll take it up, and it should have set just a touch. It's still pretty soupy, but everything is well coated, and that's all we're going for. I don't mind if I get rid of a little bit of this. And if you want your coating to stick a little bit more, heat it a little bit longer before you put your pecans in, and it'll start to get to candy stage. But remember, do not go above 235 or you will end up with a actual candy. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to lightly spread this out on here, and I'm going to try not to get too much of that liquid or juice down the bottom. And there's not very much of that left in there. I'll hold this up and see if you can see it on the overhead cam. Just a little bit in the bottom. And I'm just going to set it right here for now. Now, one thing I wanted to mention to you is that we're using cherry pellets today. Depending on how strong you want your smoke flavor on your pecans or whatever, you'll want to use whatever wood you like for that. Pecans, a mild wood like cherry or apple works really well. And why not just use pecan? That's what I say. I don't have any pecan, but one of the things is that Z-Grill provided these cherry pellets to me for free with the smoker for free. And so I am using the pellets and testing them on everything, and so far so good. They said that it was one of their best ones, and it really is. I really like that a lot. Now I'm just trying to spread these out as much as possible. It doesn't have to be perfect, but the better we spread them, the better the smoke coverage will be. And I really like the edges on this Kona grill basket here, because it just keeps you from knocking the things over. Many times I've done these on just a flat grill mat and it's worked fine, but I've always lost a few, and that's just part of the deal. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this over to the edge here. So I'm trying to stay out of the middle of the picture as much as possible because it's kind of one of my bad habits. I'm going to go ahead and just lift this up and put it straight in here and get it far enough over that we have room for the pellet tray right there. And I'm going to set this directly underneath that, so that way any of the drippings do not go in the smoker. It's not going to hurt the smoker. It just means it's something really hard to clean up, because any burned sugar is going to be difficult and that flavor will stick in there. But with this tray, we'll be able to eliminate that. So I grabbed the pellet smoker tray, and you can see it is going great. I'm going to go ahead and toss that in right here, and then I'll push it back to where it's about just a little ahead of the center, because most of the actions will be right in the middle, and then we'll close that up. Now, typically, I will run this for about 30 minutes, and then it should be just fine. I'll keep the spatula real handy. If you're running it a little bit higher temperature, you want to really keep a good eye on this. I don't think that you really need to, but you could run it higher and you would really get more of almost a smoked peanut brittle. I just want to make this dried out with a little bit of gooey candiness, like something you'd find in a candy shop down at the beach or something. But we're going to go ahead and take a 30-minute break. That'll only be 1 second for you. So I'm back, and it's been slightly over 30 minutes. And in the middle of the process, at about 16, 17, I went ahead and lightly stirred the pecans, and I tasted one, and boy, they are coming out great. So let's go ahead and open that up, pull that out just a little bit, take a look at that. I don't really think that we're at much risk of much dripping at this point. Really has that caramel corn cooked look. When you do your caramel corn, that's how it comes out when it's all ready to move to the next stage. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull that out. I'm pretty happy with how it looks. Just set it inside a cookie sheet here, and then I'm going to spread it around a little bit because I just packed it together. I'm going to go ahead and close this, and I'm just going to leave all that stuff there. It's not going to hurt anything. And I'm going to push the button here, which will start the shutdown process. You have to hold it for 1 second, and then it changes to off, and it will keep running, and what will happen is it'll just stop feeding pellets to it. And then it'll burn everything that's in the pan. I'm going to go ahead and grab one of these. That's really good. So like I mentioned before, I don't like mine overly sweet, and you want to make sure that it's the right amount of sweetness for you. And this is going to be perfect for me. But the actual recipe calls for it to be a lot sweeter than this. And so I just used double the amount of pecans, and that gave me the sweetness that I was looking for. So let's take a 5-minute break and let these really set up, and then we'll come back and have a final little discussion. So here we are, and they are completely set up. I went ahead and took a moment to break them apart. Let's see if I can find any clusters. There's a cluster right there. And basically it's just like caramel corn. You just kind of lightly toss it with your fingers and it'll just come right apart. And here's another little cluster here. And again, you just lightly toss it with your fingers and look at that. They just come separated, no problem. Now, the more sugar you use, the little tougher that'll be, but because I went light sugar, they come right apart. Here's a nice one right here. I'm gonna go ahead and sample that. And I believe that some people might call these cinnamon pralines, but really what we've got here is pecans and cinnamon sugar with a touch of nutmeg. And if you have a favorite flavor that you like what's a good one? Cardamom maybe would go really good in there. And there is some Indian spices that go really good with this too. Garam masala is another one that would be a good mixture to put with this. And if you want something spicy, you can always add some Cajun mixture, or, you know, even put in a little bit of sriracha if that's the way you roll. But I wouldn't do that with the pecans. I want to show you one of the joys of this basket. And what I really like about these things is I'm just going to take this and I'm going to dump it like that. Give it a little tap here. And there is hardly anything on there. And you're going to see that you've got a little bit of sugar on there. And this thing will get rinsed in hot water, go straight in the dishwasher, and done. Now, if you're going to cook something like fish with skin, the skin will stick on here a little bit, but that just takes a small scrub brush and you're done with that. I'm going to get another one of these. Get one of these big ones. It's got a little bit of sugar in the cracks. And now, I want you to see this. That's 2 cups of yummy goodness. So, let's go ahead and wrap up by saying thank you to Z-Grill. I really appreciate them sending out this free 10502B pellet grill. I think it's either a beast or a monster or something, I don't know. But if you search the 10502B, you'll find it. This one is the Wi-Fi model, so it's the brand new one. The pellets were also provided for free, and I bought some additional pellets because I wanted something a little stronger than the cherry, but this cherry has been working out great, and it worked excellently for these pecans. And also, don't forget the Kona basket. You'll find a link to Amazon for this below, and you can check that out. That link will look a little funny, but it'll take you to Amazon, and you'll be able to pick this up. This thing is great. I also use a lot of the ones without sides, but what I noticed with the ones without sides is sometimes something falls on the ground. I had that happen the other day with some chicken, and of course I just washed it and because I'm cheap and ate it anyway. But with these sides, that rarely happens, and on a smaller meal, like if I just made 6 pieces of chicken, it would easily fit in here. But usually it's nuts or it's shrimp or something like that, even vegetables sometimes. But this thing is awesome, so check one of these out. So thanks for watching. You'll find the full recipe in a short article on my website. So I'm literally going to write up a couple paragraphs and then put the recipe and then a summary, and that's it. So you can find all the ingredients right there. That link will be one of the first links in the description below. So thanks for watching again. Have a great day.